With that being said, I'm going to ask the Iditarod team to come on up. I don't know how many of you guys are coming. I think we sent 9. So y'all just don't hesitate. Come on up. They're going to give a report. You'll see some pictures on the screen that are going through that sort of give you an idea what that trip was like.
All right, good morning. I had the privilege of getting to lead this team, and lead is a very loose term. It's just a designation is all it is, but it's just part of being with this group was great. And we're going to just talk a little bit of time. We're going to take different parts of what we did and talk about it. And this was my 4th Iditarod that I've gotten to go to, my 5th trip to Alaska in total. But the things that I want to speak to really are the differences that we saw this year. As some of you may know, some of you may not know, we had to generally go into Anchorage on Thursday, stay a couple days, and then Saturday we head up about an hour and a half north to Willow. And we spend all day Saturday setting up for the race, the official start of the race, which happens on Sunday. We do that, tear everything we put up on Saturday right back down, put it in a U-Haul, and it's stored for another year. This year, as we flew into Alaska, it was like looking at our parking lot. There was no snow, absolutely none. So it was really, really crazy. And so this time on Saturday, instead of setting up, we took a 9.5-hour caravan trip to Fairbanks. And so we spent all day long on going up there, and we were able to find some snow, set up a different day on Sunday, raced Monday, and then tore everything down, and then we came back to our home spot on Tuesday. And so it was a lot different this year. The setup was different. The setup was quick. I think we had close to 90 volunteers that came into Grace Works from all over the country. And so setup and tear down was so fast, such a blessing. But temperatures were nuts. Usually when Sam and I are downstairs at 4 o'clock in the morning drinking coffee and reading our Bibles and talking, it's 7 to 10 below in Anchorage and can be 30 below in Fairbanks. And Monday, the day of the race in Fairbanks, it was 50 degrees. There were actually places in the river that were melting. We had a couple of volunteers kind of step through, but it was a completely different experience. But the biggest thing that I wanted to speak to, other than just the differences, was what it was our first trip getting to use what WMU has put together for a mission journal. And Will's not here, as Cliff said, but Miss Luann, Philip, man, what a tool that was. It was so encouraging every single morning, even though this was a completely new experience and we didn't know what to expect day 1 to day 2. There were several other things going on in our extended families back here that the prayers that were in that and the prayer cards coming from the WMU ministry were an absolute blessing, and we could not thank every one of you enough. It was so awesome, and thank y'all. So I'm going to get out of the way and let somebody else talk.
Well, this was my first trip to Alaska. I had been telling Josh for about 3 or 4 years, when I retire out of education, I'm going on that trip. And so I finally got to go on the trip, and what a blessing it was. I know we're supposed to talk about God moments and stuff, and I did have a God moment just the other day, because one thing my wife questioned me about, she said, "You've always wanted to go to Alaska since you were a kid. Are you going because you want to go on a mission trip, or are you going because you want to go do a mission trip or go see Alaska?" And so Joey and I were walking in the parking lot, and he says, he said, sometimes God lays a place on your heart that you want to go help those people to go on a mission trip. And so thank you, Joey, for enlightening me on that, because there is a little bit of guilt involved. You go to a beautiful place like Alaska, and so don't let that kind of stuff hold you back. Just to let you know, Shannon and I are the only two that really went. We're the only ones that wore our Iditarod shirts. The rest of these guys are imposters, especially Matt Lewitt. No, I'm just kidding. But a couple of God moments for me on the trip was I did meet a guy named Stan there, and we exchanged emails. I still keep in touch with Stan. I did get into talking to him a little bit. I eased my way into talking about the Lord with him a little bit, and he said, yes, we do go to church. We go every once in a while. And so I make a point about once every couple weeks to send Stan a text, and in there I slip things like verses and stuff in there, and I'm hoping that when we get to go back to Alaska, I get to meet Stan again and talk to Stan. He's going to be up there, he said. Another God moment was, if you remember the movie Courageous, I think it was Courageous, about the cross-country runner. And there's a scene in there, in that movie, where the dad of the cross-country runner is laying on his deathbed in the hospital, and the Kendrick brother that's in the movie walks out and he says, "I'm going to pray for you." And the guy stops him and says, "Hold on." He says, "Are you really going to pray for me? Or are you just going to say that, or are you going to walk out?" You may remember that movie. Well, I had a moment like that. We were breaking down the fence from the Iditarod, and there was a gentleman standing in line to get in on the bus, and because they were busing people in and out of Fairbanks because there was no parking there like there normally is. And he stopped me and he said, "Sir, would you pray for me?" And the first reaction I really think I had was, man, I got this fence. I got to help these guys. I got to go help. And I started to go, "I'll pray for you." And then I almost walked off. And then something hit me and I said, "You got to stop." And so his name was Ross. I don't know anything else about him. And so I did. I stood there and prayed. And the other nice thing about that was there was probably about 30 or 40 other people around us that heard us. So how many seeds did God plant right there? So those are my couple of God moments. If you get a chance to go, and we'll turn it over to these guys.
Hey, I'm Elijah. It was my first Iditarod. It was really a nice experience to get to see God's work just in our, we said 90 volunteers? We had 90 volunteers putting down fence, and it was really good to see God working within Anchorage and Fairbanks, just all those volunteers. My God moment was on the plane to Anchorage. I actually met a man. He was moving from Seattle, and he's moving down here to Charlotte. And he said that he'd gone to church as a kid, but he never really considered it. But as he's coming down here, he actually might start going to church regularly. And we prayed for him right there on the as we landed. And we actually exchanged numbers. He hasn't reached out to me yet, but I'm hoping he will soon. But it was a great trip to get to know these godly men and just spend some great time in Alaska.
I was going to say, talk about a God moment, that's the first time he's ever flown. Ever. I don't mean to embarrass you, but God made that happen.
Amen. Amen. All right, my name's Matt Lewis. I'll start by saying that this was my mission trip, my first mission trip as well. So thank you to the WMU and for the daily devotions and all the prayer and support that were sent while we were in Alaska. So when I signed up for this trip, I expected to work hard, and I was ready to serve by putting in long hours of hard work. I believe that this is how I would honor God. But when the weather forced us to change our plans, there was a lot more waiting than I expected. At first, I struggled with that. I wondered if the trip was meaningful, without the work part. And what the topic of daily devotion was on? It was on patience and flexibility. God knew. But through our experience, I learned that the mission work, I won't hold it anymore. I learned that mission work isn't just about the tasks that we accomplished or how hard we work, even though this church, these guys were the first in, last out, hardest working group in the bunch. It's about being available for God to use us however he sees fit. Even when the waiting, I got to build relationships with these guys. I had never talked to some of them before. Two of them I sat right next to for a few months. One right behind. But it was when we did get to work, and there was a small act of taking a little extra care and setting up a fence that had an extra, unexpected conversation about why we were there. The moment ended up on the front page of the newspaper in Fairbanks. Not because of the work itself, but because of the heart behind it. God knew. The trip didn't look the way I thought it would or the way I had planned, but it showed us that sometimes serving isn't just about what we do. It's about being present and trusting that God is working, even in ways we don't see. Sorry, I am a Lewis, so. Yeah. It's a thing we have. This reminded me of something important, though. Don't put your faith in the plan, but in the planner. Yes. Our plans change, but God's purpose never did. And this is what I'll take with me, along with these relationships. Thank you.
Hey. They said they're good. That was enough. I've been to Alaska before. I've been on mission trips with some of these exact guys. You can ask them later about the inside joke stuff. You know, we love that stuff. We do try to sort of limit this time up here so that you see the heart behind why we went. So it's perfect. The way that you shared was excellent, guys. Thank you for that. But if you want to see the inside mess that especially guys get into when they are together for 9 hours in a van, just buckle up. So find them later and just ask them about that. Let me.